Before cities, before kings, before written history, before the first army ever marched under a banner, humans entered the world almost defenseless. They had no claws sharp enough to tear through hide, no fangs long enough to bring down prey, no armor, no great speed, no thick fur against the cold. No natural weapon that could match the horn of a wild bull, the jaws of a big cat, or the crushing weight of a mammoth. In the beginning, a human body was not impressive. And yet, over the long arc of prehistory, this vulnerable primate became one of the most dangerous hunters on Earth. The question is not simply how humans survived. The real question is how they changed the rules of survival. The answer began with stone. A broken edge, a sharp flake, a heavy core, a pointed piece of rock held in the hand. At first, these were not weapons in the way we think of weapons today. They were tools for cutting, scraping, pounding, cracking, shaping, and surviving. But over thousands of generations, stone became more than a tool. It became an extension of the body, then an extension of the group, then an extension of human intelligence itself. This was the first great military logic, long before war had a name. Extend reach, increase force, reduce risk, use terrain, coordinate with others, pass the lesson forward. A spear and a modern missile are separated by hundreds of thousands of years. But at the deepest strategic level, they solve the same ancient problem. How can a fragile human body strike beyond itself? This is the story of how stone weapons helped make humans the deadliest hunters on Earth. To understand that transformation, we have to forget the image of prehistoric humans as simple, crude, or stupid. That image is wrong. Survival in the deep past required memory, patience, observation, courage, and skill. A bad decision could kill you. A failed hunt could starve your group. One wound, one broken leg, one mistake near a predator could end a life. The prehistoric world was not empty wilderness waiting for humans to dominate it. It was already occupied. Large herbivores moved across grasslands and forests. Predators guarded kills. Scavengers watched from the edges. Rival human groups competed for water, food, shelter, and raw materials. Climate shifted, rivers changed, herds migrated, seasons punished the careless. In that world, humans were not automatically at the top. For a long time, they were participants in a dangerous contest, sometimes hunters, sometimes scavengers, sometimes prey. Historical evidence shows that stone toolmaking began deep in prehistory, millions of years before civilization. The earliest widely recognized stone tool traditions were simple but powerful: hammer stones, cores, and sharp flakes. These tools allowed early humans and their relatives to cut meat, break bones, process plants, scrape hides, and work other materials. Later tool traditions produced more refined cutting tools, including hand axes and shaped points. That is historical fact. But the meaning of those tools goes beyond the objects themselves. A stone flake is not just a sharp rock. It is a decision. Someone selected the stone. Someone struck it at an angle. Someone understood that one material could be transformed into another kind of power. A tooth is born, a claw grows naturally, but a stone tool must be imagined before it is used. That difference changed everything. At first, stone tools improved access to food. A sharp flake could slice through hide and flesh better than bare hands. A heavy stone could crack bones open to reach marrow. This mattered because meat and marrow were dense sources of energy. Food was not just survival, it was the fuel for movement, learning, social life, and reproduction. But food came with danger. Imagine a carcass on an open plain. The smell carries. Predators may return. Hyenas may gather. Big cats may wait in the grass. Other humans may appear from the distance. Without tools, processing a carcass is slow. With a sharp edge, it becomes faster. Speed means less exposure. Less exposure means better survival. This is one of the first ways stone changed the balance of power. It did not make humans invincible. It made them more efficient under pressure. And efficiency, in the prehistoric world, could be life or death. Over time, the role of stone expanded. It helped humans shape wood. A sharpened wooden spear gave the hand more reach. A spear allowed a hunter to stand farther from danger. It could be thrust, held, braced, or possibly thrown depending on the weapon and the situation. Later, in some places and periods, stone points were attached to wooden shafts. This created a composite weapon, meaning a weapon made from multiple parts working together. That was a major leap. A stone point alone is useful. A wooden shaft alone is useful. But when joined together, they become something more dangerous than either part by itself. The stone provides a sharp or piercing edge. The wood provides reach, leverage, and distance. The maker provides skill. The group provides tactics. This is the historical turning point of the episode. Not one single day. Not one inventor standing in a cave. Not one sudden revolution that instantly conquered the natural world. The turning point was the long transition from simple stone-cutting tools to planned, repeatable hunting weapon systems. Stone tools stopped being only instruments for processing the world and became part of a strategy for striking into it. That is when humans began to project force beyond the body. This is also where the roots of military history begin to appear. Not warfare yet, not armies, not soldiers, not battle plans written by generals, but the basic logic of organized force was already forming. A group of humans could choose a location. They could track an animal. They could approach from downwind. They could use a riverbank, a cliff edge, a muddy patch, a forest gap, or a migration path. They could wait. They could signal. They could surround. They could drive prey toward danger. They could carry tools made before the moment of contact. This is not the same as war, but it is planned violence using weapons, terrain, timing, and cooperation. That logic would never leave human history. The first shock was practical. Stone weapons and tools made humans faster at processing carcasses, more capable of shaping other materials, and more dangerous in groups. A lone human with a stone point was still vulnerable. A coordinated group with spears was different. Several humans could threaten a large animal from multiple angles. They could keep distance. They could wound and retreat. They could use the animal's size against it by forcing it toward bad terrain. They could defend a kill site against smaller scavengers. They could make predators hesitate. This did not mean every hunt succeeded. It did not mean humans casually killed the largest animals around them. Large prey remained terrifying. A wounded animal could crush, gore, kick, or trample a hunter. A spear could break. A stone point could shatter. A hunter could slip. A group could panic. The difference was not certainty. The difference was possibility. Stone weapons opened possibilities that the human body alone did not have. They also changed the social meaning of skill. In a world without factories, every tool carried knowledge inside it. A good stone edge meant someone understood fracture. A balanced spear meant someone understood wood. A repaired point meant someone knew how to preserve a scarce resource. Toolmaking was not random. It required teaching, practice, and memory. The best toolmaker was not just useful. That person could change the fate of the group. The best tracker could read the ground. The experienced hunter could judge distance and danger. The elder who remembered where animals moved during the dry season held strategic knowledge. The child who learned carefully inherited more than a technique. They inherited survival. This is one of the most important points in the story. The deadliest weapon was not only stone. It was the lesson. Once a technique could be taught, it could survive the death of the person who discovered it. Once it could be repeated, it could improve. Once it could improve, it could spread. Over generations, small advantages accumulated. A sharper edge, a stronger shaft, a better ambush, a safer approach, a faster butchery method, a more reliable way to carry stone, a better memory of where good raw material could be found. None of these changes had to be dramatic by itself. Together, they transformed human survival. But every advantage creates a response. The prehistoric world did not simply surrender. Prey animals were not passive targets. Herd animals could flee sooner, avoid dangerous places, move together, or use terrain that made pursuit difficult. Large animals could fight back with overwhelming force. Predators could wait near carcasses, steal kills, attack isolated humans, or avoid armed groups when the risk was too high. Other human groups could also react. They could copy tool designs. They could compete for good stone sources. They could watch from a distance and learn. They could avoid stronger groups. They could move into different territories. They could fight, raid, or form temporary relationships. The evidence for specific events is often impossible to recover, so we should be careful. We cannot name the first conflict over a stone source. We cannot reconstruct every ambush or every rivalry, but it is a plausible inference that valuable resources, better tools, and hunting grounds created pressure between groups. This is where the arms race begins, but not in the industrial sense. There were no weapons factories, no state arsenals, no military budgets, no mass production lines. The arms race was cultural. One group learned, another copied. One tool form spread, another disappeared. A better method survived because the group that used it survived, taught it, and carried it forward. This makes prehistoric technology very different from later warfare, but also strangely familiar. In later history, a new weapon forces enemies to adapt. Bronze weapons force changes in armor and tactics. Iron weapons make larger armies possible. Gunpowder forces castles to change. Rifles change formations. Tanks change defensive systems. Aircraft change the meaning of distance. Drones change the visibility of the battlefield. But the first version of this cycle was much older. A better spear changed how humans approached prey. A sharper edge changed how quickly a carcass could be processed. A reliable tool tradition changed how a group planned movement through the landscape. The new way of war, if we can use that phrase carefully, was not war yet. It was the new way of organized danger. Humans learned that force could be planned before contact. That matters. An animal attacks with its body. A human group prepares with memory. The weapon exists before the encounter. The plan exists before the chase. The ambush exists before the animal arrives. This separation between preparation and violence is one of the foundations of military thinking. To make a spear is to imagine a future confrontation. To carry a stone core is to prepare for future needs. To teach a child how to strike stone is to prepare the next generation for dangers not yet seen. In this sense, stone weapons changed time itself for human survival. Humans no longer only reacted to danger in the moment, they prepared for danger in advance. That is a strategic revolution. But the price of power was real. Better weapons could encourage more dangerous hunts. A group that once avoided large animals might now risk attacking them. The reward could be enormous: meat, fat, hide, bone, and status. But the cost could be devastating. One injured adult could weaken the entire group. In a small band, every person mattered. A wounded hunter was not only one lost worker. They could be a parent, a teacher, a tracker, a toolmaker, a memory holder. Stone weapons could also create dependence on skill. A badly made weapon could fail when it mattered most. A group that lost access to good raw material might be forced to carry stone farther, reuse tools longer, or accept lower quality weapons. A group that lost skilled makers might lose part of its survival system. There were logistical limits too. Prehistoric humans carried what they needed. There were no roads, carts, pack animals, warehouses, or supply chains in the early periods. Heavy stone was useful, but weight mattered. A tool had to justify the energy required to carry it. A weapon had to be repairable. A cutting edge had to be worth preserving. This is why the most successful tools were often flexible. A flake could cut meat, scrape hide, and help shape wood. A core could produce more flakes. A spear could hunt, defend, and intimidate. In a mobile world, versatility was power. There were social costs as well. Who received the best weapon? Who took the greatest risk during a hunt? Who controlled the knowledge of tool making? Who decided when the group moved? Who got meat first after success? These questions were not politics in the later sense of kings, laws, and states, but they were political in the older human sense. They concerned power, trust, obligation, status, and survival inside a group. The more important weapons became, the more important the social rules around them became. This is another reason we should not glorify the story. Stone weapons were not just symbols of triumph, they were also tools of danger. A weapon that could kill an animal could also kill a human. Hunting tools could become weapons in conflict. Competition over resources could become more dangerous when both sides were armed. We should not imagine constant prehistoric war. That would be careless. But we should also not imagine total peace. The most realistic picture is more complex. Cooperation inside groups, exchange between some groups, avoidance between others, competition over resources, and occasional violence shaped by environment and survival pressure. Stone weapons did not create human aggression, but they changed what human aggression could do. Over the long term, the greatest effect was generational. Humans became increasingly tool-dependent strategic predators. That phrase is important. They were not the strongest animals, but they became predators through strategy. They were not born with weapons, but they built them. They did not rely only on instinct, but on teaching. Each generation inherited a world slightly changed by the last. A child watching a stone napper did not see just a rock, they saw a method. They saw where to strike, how to hold the core, what angle produced a useful flake, which pieces were worth keeping, which mistakes made the stone useless. A young hunter watching a spear thrust did not see only violence. They saw distance, timing, courage, and danger. They saw why the group waited, why they moved quietly, why the wind mattered, why the wounded animal was still deadly. This accumulated knowledge became a second inheritance. Biology gave humans hands, eyes, brains, and bodies. Culture gave them techniques, memories, stories, warnings, and tools. And culture could evolve faster than the body. That was decisive. A lion does not redesign its claws from one generation to the next. A wolf does not teach its descendants to attach a sharper edge to its teeth. But humans could change the weapon without changing the body. They could adapt to new prey, new climates, new materials, and new dangers by changing what they made and what they taught. This ability helped humans expand across many environments. Grasslands, forests, coasts, river valleys, cold regions, and ice age landscapes all demanded different solutions. Stone tools did not solve every problem, but they made humans more flexible. They allowed one species to survive not by specializing in one niche, but by carrying adaptable knowledge into many niches. The deeper pattern continued. Stone led to better stone. Wooden weapons led to composite weapons. Throwing systems became more effective. Later, bows and arrows would extend reach even farther. Agriculture would change food production. Settlements would create territory worth defending. Walls would appear. Raids would become battles. Battles would become campaigns. Metal would replace stone in many weapons. States would organize violence at a scale no small band could imagine. But the logic began much earlier. When bronze weapons appeared, they did not invent the idea of extending the body. Stone had already done that. When iron made weapons cheaper and more widespread, it intensified a pattern already old. When gunpowder allowed force to break stone walls, it was another step in the same human habit, using knowledge to multiply power. When rifles, artillery, aircraft, missiles, and drones appeared, each one widened the distance between human intention and physical impact. A drone and a stone spear look nothing alike. One depends on electronics, satellites, sensors, batteries, data links, and industrial supply chains. The other depends on stone, wood, muscle, and skill. But both answer an ancient problem. How can humans strike without placing the body directly in the jaws of danger? The answer began in the Stone Age. This does not mean we should celebrate violence. The story of weapons is also the story of fear, hunger, injury, competition, and loss. Stone tools helped humans survive, but they also opened the path toward more organized forms of killing. The same intelligence that allowed humans to hunt together would later allow them to fight together. The same ability to teach toolmaking would later teach tactics. The same power of memory would preserve not only survival skills, but rivalries, warnings, and strategies. Human power has always carried a moral shadow. That is why this first chapter matters. It reminds us that military history did not begin with empires. It began with vulnerability. It began with a creature that could be killed by the world around it, learning to change the terms of the encounter. A stone blade in the hand was a small thing, but it represented a huge change. It meant that the human body was no longer limited to itself. The hand could hold an edge, the arm could guide a spear. The group could become more dangerous than the individual. The child could inherit the lesson. The next generation could improve it. From that moment onward, humans would never face the world as merely animals again. They would face it as makers. And that may be the most important transformation in the history of warfare. Not the first battle, not the first empire, not the first sword, but the first time a human looked at the world and saw not only danger, but material that could be shaped into power. The first weapon did not just change what humans could kill. It changed what humans could become. Because humans did not become the deadliest hunters on Earth by being the strongest animal. They became dangerous because they learned how to turn stone into force, cooperation into tactics, memory into survival, and knowledge into power. And once that process began, it never stopped.